I'm Jeff Hunt. He's Bill Thorpe. It's Friday.
Wait, I forget. Is Tylenol back on the menu? So confused what's causing autism today. So confusing.
We're going to get into it this hour. The
Yes, we will.
headline from Fox News: CDC quietly changes vaccine and autism stance after years of controversy. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has updated its website with a new stance on the potential link between vaccines and autism. The new wording on the CDC site now states the claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim because studies have not ruled out the possibility that infant vaccines cause autism. It also adds studies supporting a link have been ignored by health authorities. The agency noted that the statement, vaccines do not cause autism, has been historically disseminated by the CDC and other federal health agencies in an effort to prevent vaccine hesitancy. Previously, the CDC page stated, studies have shown that there is no link between receiving vaccines and developing autism spectrum disorder, ASD. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has launched a comprehensive assessment of potential causes of autism, the CDC stated. Those include investigations on, quote, plausible biological mechanisms and potential causal links, unquote. The header, vaccines do not cause autism, remains on the page, but it's followed by an asterisk indicating that it was not removed because of a prior agreement rather than because the evidence supports it. Bill Thorpe, what is going on here?
Yeah, what is going on? So the CDC puts up something that is not backed up by any evidence whatsoever and then complains about things in evidence. This is hilarious.
Is the thing not backed up by evidence that vaccines are safe?
That vaccines cause autism, and there's nothing showing that vaccines. Yeah, vaccines
totally
are safe. Yes.
That's the one not backed up by research.
The vaccines are safe. Yeah, that's backed up by research. And the idea their conclusions are completely and totally non-evidentiary. Yet they claim there's not evidence on the other side, despite mountains of it. But here we are in the anti-science administration. This is great. Can't wait until we start recommending blood letting.
Is it the anti-science administration or the anti-scientism administration?
Anti-science.
Really? I think it's more the scientism. Because there's like
I don't know what tism you have, but explain it to me.
There's like these issues within science where people get like really worked up, almost to a level of religious devotion and condemnation, that if you don't fully agree with them, you are somehow a heretic to be brought before, and burned at the stake. Nah. How dare you question?
No, see, that's a
in
my mind,
vaccines?
A misinterpretation. Here's the idea. If you question vaccines, that's fine, but bring the evidence. Bring the evidence, do the research, and show the studies. And they don't have any. Remember that whole thing about Tylenol and autism? Yeah, those studies are bunk.
They're saying, the CDC is saying, studies supporting the link have been ignored by health authorities.
They've been ignored because they suck. Because those studies don't prove what the people claim, and many of them have been retracted. That's why they've been ignored. Bad science should be ignored. Always, 100% of the time. And this CDC is saying, have we looked at some of the bad science? Some of the people that did horrible experiments that have no rationale, and they actually manipulated data or did bad studies or drew bad conclusions. We should look at those. No, we shouldn't. They are bad science.
Was there good studies behind the COVID vaccination's effectiveness?
What do you mean by that? Define it for me. What do you mean by good studies?
You said good studies and bad studies. I'm wondering because around COVID, we had the entire scientific establishment telling us certain things that ended up being wrong.
Like what?
That it prevented you from getting
Who said that?
From COVID.
Who said that?
Didn't Fauci say that?
Nope.
He never said?
No.
I've seen videos of him saying that.
No, you haven't. You've never seen it.
Yes, I have.
Hang on. You've never seen him say that the vaccine 100% prevents you from getting COVID. He never said that.
I think the qualifier you have in there is 100%.
Yeah, but guess what?
I never said 100%.
Wait, hang on a sec. Hold on. no vaccine or any medicine is 100% effective. No surgery is ever 100% effective.
You're telling me that the health establishment around COVID never said that if you got the vaccine, you wouldn't get COVID?
The one person that I have found that said if you take the vaccine, you will not get COVID is Joe Biden. That is the one person that uttered that direct statement. Every other one that I have found puts in the qualifier about vaccines not being 100% effective. But if we're talking about COVID, do you know who did actually stand there and say that something was 100% effective? Pierre Corey. Pierre Corey was testifying in front of Congress and said that ivermectin is 100% effective at preventing COVID. He took it and got COVID. Well done. High five. Yeah, that was crap. But I can't find any major scientists. I can't find anything out there that shows them making a recommendation that says the vaccine is 100% effective. The only phrase I can find on that is Joe Biden saying if you take the vaccine, you won't get COVID. He was wrong. That was dumb. That was stupid. But I've got a long laundry list of miscommunications and wrong stuff that both the Trump and the Biden administration said about the vaccines and about COVID. There's a long list of that crap.
I think there's a lot of revisionism there. I mean, this notion that we went through 2020 and 2021 and that COVID was this kind of, the vaccine was this kind of optional, beneficial, therapeutic shot that you got, I don't think is factually correct.
I never said that. You're mischaracterizing how I described it.
I think that's exactly how you characterized it. I think it was strongly, forcefully pushed upon the American people by the health industry in a way that oftentimes made claims that were not factually accurate and became this giant moral push to get people to take the COVID vaccine. Nowadays, very few people take it. And it gives you what was developed was this kind of scientism that attached morality to scientific claims. And then if you disagreed with what was being stated by the scientific community, you were somehow in violation of these great moral orders that took place.
See, the emotion was on the people that were disbelieving the science. The science, in many cases, came in and was accurate. But we in this country have a large misunderstanding, one, of science, and two, how science functions. So we, as a public, came to a lot of wrong conclusions, and we had a lot of emotion tied up into it. The emotion was on the side of the people that didn't like the vaccine and didn't want to because they were believing a bunch of crap that was being sold to them.
You don't see the elitism in your comments right there?
No, because, I'm sorry, science doesn't care about your feelings. It's not elitism. It's about facts. Science was right. That's it. Full stop. What? The mRNA...
I think you're playing into exactly what I'm saying.
No.
Like there's this elitism that develops around people that claim that the science that they know is exactly right. And you out there are the fools to not believe what I believe.
It's not belief. It's the idea of what's scientifically proven. And again, we can go as far as belief in theorems, as far as if we want to get into an actual scientific discussion deeply, because one of the things that's important about science is they never come in and say that we are 100% right. And so it's always going to be a little bit malleable. And based on the information that we had at the time, the science was right. The mRNA vaccines did what they were supposed to. It taught your body how to fight off COVID. And you saw it after there were large-scale vaccination programs that the people that ended up in the hospitals and were dying were those that weren't vaccinated. That was, even though they were the smallest group of people in the country, they were the largest group that was making up those that were sick and those who were in the hospital and those that were dying. That's it. If you need any more proof, then group that got vaccine didn't get COVID and die as often as a smaller group who didn't get the vaccine and died in a much higher population concentration.
Yeah, I think
what else are you going to get?
I think that's a misunderstanding of the facts because
show me where I'm wrong.
Because toddlers weren't going to the hospital.
Show me where I'm wrong. On them.
I
yes,
just
they were.
showed
Toddlers
you. Were not going to the hospital during COVID. What
yes,
are you talking about?
Yes, there were kids that were in the hospital.
But you just said they made up the largest amount of people that were in the
I
hospital.
said the people that weren't vaccinated were the largest. Hang on.
Were toddlers vaccinated at the same rate as everybody else?
I would have to look at the numbers.
No, they weren't vaccinated.
But
because parents use their intellect and we're like, this is like a minor cold for our kids. Why are we vaccinating toddlers? So people didn't vaccinate their kids. And now the CDC recommendation is that really you should only get the COVID vaccination if you're older or you have an underlying condition, which is what its vaccination should have been. Vaccination recommendation should have been all along.
After the vaccines were rolled out, the largest group of people that were in the hospitals and dying from it were those that were unvaccinated. That is true. Just across the board. I'll go research the ages if you need to right now.
Because the underlying argument that you're making is it's because they weren't vaccinated that they ended up in the hospital.
Yes, that's exactly why they ended up in the hospital.
And you're
because they weren't
ignoring
vaccinated.
pretty much everything else that could be involved in that. Their age, underlying conditions, and others.
Here's the thing. Underlying conditions, when you then don't get vaccinated and get the disease, that's why you end up in the hospital. Yes, that's why when you get measles, you normally die of a bacterial infection, not of measles. Measles doesn't kill you. You die of a bacterial infection. That's why. Same thing with COVID. You died of normally something else because it created problems. Yes, that's normally what happened. Yes, and that happens with a large number of viruses.
Where you're going with this, but
no, but it happens with a large number of viruses. If you can sit there and say, well, all these people came in here and they had measles, but they died of something else, a bacterial infection. It couldn't be measles that killed them. We don't need a vaccine. No, that's not how measles works. Most of the people that die from measles die from a secondary bacterial infection because of how measles works. That's it.
I don't understand your point. What's your point here? That the people that were in the hospital,
you were saying that other people came in. And, no, you said lots of people came in with other comorbidities, which is why you would get vaccinated because you'd be more in danger because of comorbidities. Yeah, that is part of it. Yes, and if they chose not to, they were more at risk, and they end up in the hospital more often. That's part of it.
Well, I'm glad I got you there because your original argument was it was people that didn't get vaccinated that made up the hospitals.
Yes,
and I think you're missing a lot more in that equation than just simply you didn't get vaccinated. Because there's lots of young people that didn't get vaccinated never ended up in the hospital.
But the group that was in the hospital, the largest cohort, were those that were unvaccinated, and that was a smaller set than those that were. If the vaccine was ineffective, you would see the numbers balanced, and they weren't.
I don't think I said the vaccine was ineffective.
Yeah, you did. So we're told things, and we shouldn't have done it, moral things, and people didn't do it, and people didn't get sick. Yeah, it worked.
I pointed out that the medical establishment early on claimed, and I think there's plenty of evidence, we'll pull it up, that if you got the vaccination, you didn't get COVID. They were wrong. And that was part of my evidence that there's this element called scientism that exists where people claim that their review of scientific activity is correct and they are morally superior to anybody that disagrees with them. And in fact, you're not just disagreeing, you're a morally bad person for not believing what they believe. Yeah, and I think that exists. Yeah, and I think we heard a lot of it in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, but your statement is fundamentally inaccurate. No vaccine ever prevents you from getting a disease. Ever.
All right, that's my point.
Jeff,
all right,
Jeff,
we got to get to news and comment with Blake Olson.
You said that it prevented. That's no vaccine ever prevents you from getting it.
I didn't say that.
You heard that. You heard Jeff and Bill listeners. You heard him say that.
I said that there was an element out there that pushed this narrative around COVID that if you got the vaccine, you weren't going to get it. And your claim was, well, that's not the way vaccines work. You're not addressing my claim. All right, let's get to news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good morning, TGIF. 42 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 51 today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, new data just released, shows that 2.3 million individuals who aren't from the U.S. have left the states since DJT took office. That is progress. It is working, and DJT is now planning to open, here's more good news, more than 1 billion acres of U.S. waters to drilling for fossil fuels. And Hakeem Jeffries, after his team was exposed a couple of days ago, communicating with Jeffrey Epstein after he was found guilty of his evil. Now Jeffries a little on edge, dealing with every subject. This morning on CNBC, talking about Obamacare, it got a little ugly.
Make me realize that I don't think you want to get a deal done. I think this is something where you'd like to see the rates go higher and allow the Republicans to hang themselves with that. Is that the answer?
That's absolutely
politics?
That's absolutely a ridiculous assertion, and really shame
3 years
on you
is not going to get passed. So what do you do?
Shame on you for saying that, because we're fighting. It's not a partisan issue for us.
Oh, yeah, it was ugly. It goes on for a couple of minutes, and he looks very frustrated right now. Kami Donnie sitting down with 47 today at the White House, and here's DJT this morning on Brian Kilmeade as he gets ready for the meeting this afternoon.
Well, I was hitting him a little hard, too, in all fairness. I don't know exactly what he means by turn the volume up, because turn the volume up, he has to be careful when he says that to me. I mean, he was very nice in calling, as you know, and we're going to have a meeting. I guess we meet at 3 o'clock today, and I think it's going to be quite civil. We'll find out. You'll be the first to know.
All right, that's at 1 o'clock Denver time. After a post saying that a group of Democrats, including Colorado's own Jason Crow, should be tried for seditious behavior, punishable by death, the White House says 47 doesn't want them to be put to death. DJT was referring to Democrats who put out a video telling members of the armed forces that they had an obligation to resist illegal orders.
They are literally saying to 1.3 million active duty service members not to defy the chain of command.
And White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters that Trump didn't actually want the lawmakers executed, but the video could lead to a dangerous insurrection.
This video tries to plant the seeds of doubt in the minds of our soldiers, sailors, airmen. It tries to suggest that what's going on right now needs extra scrutiny from them, and they need to question the orders that they receive from their chain of command. That's dangerous.
And that was the great George Brockler. Here is Crow.
President Donald Trump threatened to have me arrested and executed simply for reminding our service members of their oaths to follow the Constitution and to defend the rule of law.
Okay, and that gives me an excuse to play the Mockingbird and the Crow. Hardy.
I'm a mom.
I'm going to play it right after the show here. The Coast Guard out with a new policy that doubles down on its current one regarding hate symbols. In a policy released Thursday, the Coast Guard said divisive or hate symbols and flags are prohibited, and added that includes nooses, swastikas, and any symbols or flags co-opted or adopted by hate-based groups. This comes after multiple reports said the Coast Guard was moving to label such symbols as potentially divisive, however you say that word, divisive, potato. A final ruling on the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Remember him? It's being considered by a federal judge, Maryland U.S. District Court Judge Paula Zinnes heard oral arguments in the case Thursday. Zinnes expressed concerns about the testimony of an immigrations and customs enforcement official who admitted he had no specific knowledge about Garcia's case. The Avalanche are on fire, going for 7 wins in a row last night.
Here's Marty Natchez. Long shot off the iron from a goal. Score! Nathan McKinnon.
Thank you both.
Back his second goal of the.
Yeah, 6-3 over the Rangers, and the Avalanche, they're just rocking. They're 14-1-5. Texans over the Bills last night, 23-19. Houston is 6-5. Bills now 7-4. Kind of struggling right now. See if they can bounce back. The Broncos off this weekend, but Shadur Sanders will start for the Browns against the Raiders. A lot of people will be watching that on Sunday. College football tomorrow. Once again, Arizona State at Colorado at Folsom Field, CSU at Boise State, and at the Academy, New Mexico. They're rolling. They've won 4 straight, and we'll see if the Air Force Academy Falcons can defeat them. Jason Eck has done an incredible job at New Mexico, Nevada at Wyoming, Portland State at UNC. It is 41 in Castle Pines, 40 in Lakewood, 42 in Denver, and you're waking up with Jeff and Billy. Have a great weekend. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
A storm system lifting north and east out of Arizona will clip the Front Range and eastern plains of Colorado with some upslope, some cooler, wet weather coming to the Front Range. Clouding up, temperatures in the low 50s today. Showers developing by afternoon. Areas of rain and fog tonight may be mixing with a little bit of wet snow. This will be especially true Palmer Divide and foothills. Some of these rain and snow showers and areas of fog will linger into early Friday, then partly cloudy, and back into the 50s for the weekend. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. The CDC quietly changing vaccine and autism stance after years of controversy. The new wording on the CDC's site now states that claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim because studies have not ruled out the possibility that infant vaccines cause autism. It also adds studies supporting a link have been ignored by health authorities. The Children's Health Defense applauded the update, saying finally the CDC is beginning to acknowledge the truth about this condition that affects millions, disavowing the bold, long-running lie that vaccines do not cause autism, said Mary Holland. No studies have ever proved this irresponsible claim. On the contrary, many studies point to vaccines as the plausible primary cause of autism. Thankfully, HHS has now launched a comprehensive assessment on the cause of autism, including an investigation of plausible biological mechanisms. Others saying that this is wrong. Here's the American Academy of Pediatrics. Studies have repeatedly found no credible link between life-saving childhood vaccines and autism. Scientists are learning more about potential causes of autism all the time. One thing we know with certainty is that vaccines are not one of the causes. There is no single root cause of autism. Bill, what is happening?
We're going anti-science, and we're posting stuff on the CDC website that's not true or backed up by really anything. But it's what we feel. What do you expect when you've got RFK Jr. as the head of HHS? He doesn't know what he's doing, so this is what we expect. That's exactly it. He's even had to walk back his little Tylenol speechy thing, too, where, no, there's no causal relationship. Had to release that because the studies they relied on were crap.
What causes autism?
It is a neurological issue, and there are a variety of number of genetic things that have been pointed to. There isn't necessarily one cause, but you know what it isn't? Biological. There hasn't been any studies that have been able to prove that it's a biological component, which would include your vaccines.
So why would genetics lead to this change? In 2014, about 1 in 31 were identified with autism. In 2000, it was 1 in 150.
Because of an expansion of the diagnostic criteria. That's it. There's nothing out there.
So the people born in 2000 can't be diagnosed with autism?
It's an expansion of the criteria, so they can be if they go back and then get reevaluated, and that's why you have more people. So the people that were there in 2000 could be diagnosed and have autism in 2015. That's an expansion of criteria diagnoses. It's not a new case of autism. That's it. That's all it is. There is nothing that anybody's been able to point to that shows a biological component everything shows it's an expansion of the diagnostic criteria.
So the numbers are the same as they've always been? We just diagnose it better?
The numbers would increase if you diagnose it more, yes. And that's kind of true over the all course of science.
So they just need to go back. The older people, I mean, they're still around. It's not like they're gone.
And guess what? And there are people in their 30s and 40s that have autism. Yes. There are people that have been diagnosed with autism.
Right, because autism
40s.
Lasts your entire life, right?
Yeah, and they've been diagnosed with it, and some have been diagnosed later in life. Yes. Yeah, it's an expansion of the diagnostic criteria. Tiers 1 and 2 didn't exist in the mid-90s and early 2000s. Simply didn't exist. So there's more diagnoses because we've expanded the criteria. That's it. That's all this is, but it's a misunderstanding.
I'm not sure that's the case. That seems wildly reductionistic in my mind.
In what way?
You're essentially making the argument that there's nothing causing any new forms of autism, that autism has been at a standard rate for all of history. We just identify it better.
Yeah.
And you sure that's the case?
Yes, and that's been the case of a lot of things. We've had a lot of different varieties of cancer for years, yet we've gotten better at diagnosing them. There are all sorts of things over the course of medical history that shows that to be true. And again, I am open to a biological component or causation inside of autism, but it needs to be proven first. I'm not going to start from the position of, well, obviously this is biological because I can't explain it. I'm going to look at the testing, I'm going to look at the vaccines, and I'm going to examine the science. And what has been shown so far is there is no biological component. This is a diagnostic component. That's why we have the expansion.
Yeah, here's the CDC's own website. Autism rates have increased significantly.
Because we've diagnosed more. Yeah, duh.
That just...
No, I understand why it's hard
frankly, I think that's ignorant. I'm sorry.
What do you mean?
I think
Tell me why you think it's
you're
ignorant.
just going, well, we just know how to study it better. And I go, well, those people from the study I just talked about are still alive. And there's no rate going, oh, yeah, no, we went back to all the people born in 2000 and the rate's the same. The rate's not the same. They're still alive. They're still here.
What do you mean by the rate at which they're diagnosed is not the same? So you're looking
the total
you're looking
number,
for
the total percentage number of people who have autism has
we've
changed.
Expanded, but we've expanded the criteria.
You're
of
going,
course
well,
it
we
changed.
expanded the criteria, so we look at it more. And I'm going, well, the people that are born in 2000, one of the numbers I cited earlier, are just 25 years old. And it hasn't been like, oh, yeah, we went and talked to them and we realized that what we thought was just normal actually has autism. My bad, we got it wrong.
How do you know the person
and
that's 25?
The rate has gone up.
Hang on a sec. If a person was alive at 2010 and wasn't diagnosed as autism, and now is alive in 2025 and is diagnosed with autism, that same person, and it's because the criteria expands, that is an expansion of the diagnoses of autism. Not a new case. That's an expansion of the diagnoses. That
Correct.
person still had autism. Hang on a sec. Wait,
Bill,
let me finish this.
Has
Wait, hang on a sec. That would also increase the rate. That person that had autism in 2005 and then wasn't diagnosed in 2010, when the criteria changed in 2025, that would show an increase in the rate of diagnoses. It would give you exactly what you are claiming, yet it's not an increase in actual cases of autism. It's an increase in the diagnosis
so I just want to be clear on
criteria.
that. You do not believe that there has been a change in the rate of people getting autism.
What I'm saying is I don't see a biological component. That so far has not been proven. Everything that I've seen so far is an expansion of diagnosis criteria that shows the expansion of autism. If someone can show a biological component,
not biological.
That's part of it,
But
yes.
why wouldn't
and if someone can show me
Okay.
a biological component, I am open to it.
All right, so if I guess if you don't have an autistic kid, or maybe you do, give us a call. I mean, because I just find that wildly reductionistic and just being like, well, no, we got better at diagnosing it. No problem here. Move along, the rest of you. To me, it seems like there's a lot of parents out there that are deeply concerned about this, and I don't think, particularly under the Biden administration, you got any answers. And I'm grateful that the Trump administration has made this such a big issue to confront and to go out there and to do research. And I think it's dismissive to just go, well, we've gotten better at diagnosing it. All right, let's talk L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. You've heard me say it before. When it comes to keeping your home comfortable, who you trust matters. That's why I recommend my friends at L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, a local family-owned company that truly cares about your comfort. Right now, they're offering a full furnace system evaluation for just $59.95 and a complimentary second opinion if you've already got a quote from someone else. And when you install a new furnace or AC, you'll get a free programmable thermostat or carbon monoxide detector, plus no hidden charges, no trip fees, and next-day installations. Their Gold Plan maintenance keeps your system running efficiently year-round, and you'll even get 1 year free with a new furnace and AC combo. I love that L&L gives back, offering discounts for first responders, military, and seniors, and treating every customer like family. So if your home's too hot or too cold, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning because, as they like to say, you'll be comfortable with us. Visit bestdenverhvac.com. That's bestdenverhvac.com. Phone calls coming in, text messages hot. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill and I discussing the CDC quietly changing vaccine and autism stance after years of controversy. A question to you, sir. Do you believe that the pharmaceutical companies have an improper influence with the CDC?
What do you mean by improper? Let me know where you're going with that one.
Do you think they could advance things to pad their bottom lines that maybe aren't necessarily always in the best interest of the Americans?
I would submit that any large corporation that has a lot of money and a lot of paid lobbyists does have the ability to influence. However, I have not seen that influence go so far as to push the CDC to come to incorrect scientific conclusions.
All right. So, yes, they can, but you haven't seen the evidence that they are.
That they're pushing for scientific conclusions. I'm not saying they don't have influence, but I'm saying I haven't seen the evidence that they are changing or influencing the scientific conclusions. But haven't seen it yet.
All right. Let's go to Joan in Lakewood. Good morning, Joan. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Good morning. First thing I want to say is this is pretty heavy for the last hour of Friday.
I know it is.
And I miss the poets deeply. So,
Jeff's got a limerick later we're going to read.
Okay. That makes me feel better. So one of the things that a lot of people don't get is how the medical field is collecting medical data these days. Okay? So I know from a situation in a breast clinic that they strip all of your identifying markers off of your stuff, and they put it into a database, huge databases, and then they do some manipulating of that data, and that's how some of the research is being done these days. And I sincerely think that probably they will throw AI on it, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens. But I wanted to make sure that you understood, because I have worked with the CDC. You know, I am a retired healthcare professional, and there is a difference between causal and associated with.
Yeah, there is.
So right now, and I want to get this out because it's really important, there are antibiotics out there that are new, and they are associated with disassociation, which sounds pretty funny, associated with disassociation in the elderly. And when the people over 80 take these antibiotics and they don't have enough fluid, they actually mentally disassociate and they become dementia-like. And I have seen several cases as anecdotally. So, and you can put it in, and it comes up right away that it's associated with it. And it's the same thing with the Tylenol. You know, they put out this thing that the Tylenol was associated with this Alzheimer's, and not Alzheimer's.
Autism.
Yeah. But they don't have causal with that. And I think one of the things that maybe we're looking at is some of the reasons they're opening up some of these things is because how the data is being harvested off of people's medical.
Yeah. Now, Joan, the one thing I'll push back on that is the Tylenol studies did not even really create an association, because the Tylenol studies were so poorly done. The one major study that RFK Jr. cites the most often didn't control for things like family genetics. And what happened was, when they controlled for families, they saw kids that were in the exact same household, under the same medical care, receiving the same vaccines. Some got autism, some didn't. They also saw people that never took Tylenol ever during pregnancy had kids that had autism. And that's the problem, is the association at the core inside of those studies didn't exist. There was recently a British study that came out that looked at those Tylenol studies in depth and found most of them were piss poor. Sorry about the language, but that's what they said, that it was just an awful series of studies that were poorly done, poorly evaluated, and didn't come to the conclusions that they purported. And in fact, 7 out of the 9 they looked at, the people inside the research study said there is no causal or associative factor with Tylenol and autism. So it said exactly the opposite of what RFK Jr. was saying.
You know what? You have just really made me feel much more confident in the science that is being associated with what is happening with the CDC.
Yeah, but it's not scientifically backed, Joan, and I appreciate it. Oh, sorry, I cut you off there. Go ahead. What do you want to say at the end there?
I sincerely believe that things are changing as far as research is going. And I also know that some of those data researches can be very flawed because they are looking back at certain things. So I do know that I have written 42 scientific papers in my lifetime, and they've been peer reviewed, and I understand the whole process. It is difficult to prove anything, even causally. And one of the most interesting papers I wrote was about how at the Denver Zoo, these birds were getting salmonella from the crickets that they were being fed. I was never able to prove that, but it was associated.
Yeah.
And,
Those distinctions are important.
Thanks,
Joan. But I mean, here's Harvard Medical using Tylenol during pregnancy may increase children's autism and ADHD risk. So Harvard got that one wrong, you think?
Which study is it? I mean, what's the study?
The one from 2025.
Well, the thing is that I'd have to see exactly the one, because the British Medical Journal looked at 9 of the top studies, found no correlation. They found, and the studies were crap. So I'll have to look at the Harvard one. But the Harvard one doesn't say causal, does it?
No, it says
and
may.
So, yeah,
may.
and so,
to that distinction
and understand that association would be something like this. An association means you see something that is in a group that doesn't exist in another group necessarily. So you could say that diets actually make kids fat because the fat kids are on diets and the kids who are not on diets aren't fat. That would be an association claiming that diets make kids fat. So that's how incorrect it is.
Go back to our conversation on the pharmaceutical industry's influence in the CDC. Here's an article from NPR back in 2017 citing a newly published study back then from JAMA of Internal Medicine. The long arm of the pharmaceutical industry continues to pervade practically every area of medicine, reaching those who write guidelines that shape doctors' practices, patient advocacy organization, letter writers to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and even oncologists. The headline, "From Twitter to treatment guidelines, industry influence permeates medicine." I think what is going to be RFK Jr.'s great contribution during his tenure is going to be exploring and cutting off some of the pharmaceutical industry's influence in the CDC. I mean, you have the NPR saying it pervades practically every area of medicine.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though, is you're also ascribing negativity as if they're influencing it in a negative way. And remember, the guy that started the entire idea of vaccines causing autism, Andrew Wakefield, was a gastroenterologist who was paid by a bunch of lawyers who were trying to sue to do an autism study about vaccines causing autism. His study was 12 kids, some of whom had autism before getting a vaccine. His study was retracted and has been debunked, and he's agent zero on the idea that autism and vaccines are linked.
You're proving my point that you can have undue influence in medicine, and my critique all along was against this notion of scientism, that somehow you embrace this superior way of looking at science and then condemning everybody, when what a lot of people are trying to point out is that there's a lot of forces driving a lot of these things.
Here's the thing. The scientism in that description that I have is from Andrew Wakefield. The scientism comes from Pierre Corey. The scientism comes from Steve Kirsch. They're the ones that are doing what you're talking about because they're the ones that are using studies that have never been peer reviewed. They're using studies that are incorrect, that have come to the wrong conclusions, and they're using information that is completely and totally bunk in order to push narratives that are untrue. That's the scientism. Andrew Wakefield, Pierre Corey, Steve Kirsch.
Are those the guys that did the original lawsuit?
Those are the guys that during the time. One, Andrew Wakefield is the guy that starts the autism being caused by vaccines. Pierre Corey, people that are longtime listeners to this show will know his name and voice, along with Steve Kirsch. Those are the dudes that pushed the alternative therapies for COVID that were completely and totally unproven. Pierre Corey is the dude that said that ivermectin would prevent COVID, took it, and got COVID.
Yeah, but did they force everybody to take ivermectin? See, that's the challenge that I have is you can go like, well, those guys are all wrong, of course. But the level of moral force that came from Fauci and others is nowhere matched on that other side. Anyways, we'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Hey, you got to get a new stove or stovetop? We got the selection help for you at Mountain High Appliance. Their clearance center offers a huge selection of ranges, refrigerators, washers, dryers, and more. Save up to 60% on open box, scratch, and dent display models and overstocked appliances from Bosch, Thermador, KitchenAid, and many more. When you're looking for great deals on appliances, think Mountain High Appliance Clearance Center for the best prices and selection. 601 East 64th Avenue, 601 East 64th Avenue. Bill, what a way to finish the week.
It was amazing.
I knew that vaccines and all that would get us going again. We'll be back next week. Don't miss out. We'll be back. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Have a fantastic weekend. We are Denver's talk leader. This is KNUS.